Hello, everyone. My name is Shania Jimenez, and my research presentation is on media representations of sexual abuse in Hispanic and Latino families in the United States. This topic is deeply personal to me. As someone who values both family and justice, I wanted to explore why so many survivors in Hispanic communities stay silent and how the media can either help or hurt when it comes to telling their stories. To unpack this issue, I didn't just summarize news stories, I demonstrated my mastery of argumentation by applying the Toolman model to break down the logic behind the media's messages. This gave me a powerful framework to ask, what is the media really saying? And what is it leaving unsaid? The first media source that I analyzed was an article by the Press Telegram about a famous Latina singer whose ex husband sexually abused their own daughter and her sister. Using the Tillman model, I broke it down into claim, grounds, warrant, qualifier, and rebuttal. The claim in this media source was justice was served. Grounds of this media source was courtroom facts, testimonies, and the sentencing. Warrant was that the legal system delivers justice. But here's what gets interesting. Qualifier, none. The article doesn't question the system. The rebuttal for this media source was, what about the cultural forces that kept these victims silent for years? Through my research of this media source, I realized the silence is not accidental. It's cultural, systematic, and often reinforced by how media tells these stories. My second media source that I analyzed was a blog post by the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center honoring survivors during Hispanic Heritage Month. The breakdown here of the Tillman model was the claim sharing stories empowers and educates grounds first person stories from America Ferrera, Demi Lovato, and Sylvia Rivera. Warrant that storytelling creates change. Qualifier not every survivor is ready to speak. And the rebuttal systematic barriers like language and cultural stigma still exist. This piece doesn't just report, it connects and empathizes and educates. It acknowledges that cultural values like familismo, which is loyalty to your family members, can unintentionally protect abusers by discouraging victims from speaking up. This media source dove deeper into the cultural values of Hispanic communities that the other media did not do. While I used the Tillman model to break down both of these sources, I also used it to make my claim is that media coverage often reinforces harmful silences or stereotypes around Latino and Hispanic survivors of abuse. The grounds include data and survivor stories, like those in the Chicago Children Advocacy Center's art blog post, that reveal how deeply shame and family loyalty shape disclosure. My rebuttal I had to consider is that media, like the Press Telegram, show justice through legal outcomes, but justice in court doesn't mean healing for all, especially those who never report abuse. That's why my qualifier is, while media can raise awareness, it often fails to challenge the cultural and emotional barriers many survivors face. A big challenge in my research was finding sources that centered Latino voices without stereotyping them. I had to dig through academic journals, survivor led organizations, and local media to find stories that felt authentic. In the end, I gained a deeper understanding not just of my topic, but of how powerful and sometimes limited storytelling is in the media in today's society. Furthermore, I also gained knowledge on how media persuades us through rhetorical devices. Pathos, the blog evokes real emotion and it's raw and it's powerful. Ethos, it builds trust through credible voices and advocates. Logos, I reinforce this with data. 44% of Latina report experiences childhood sexual abuse, and 31 of those cases involve a family member. In Kairos, the timing, spotlighting survivors during Hispanic Heritage Month, makes this conversation urgent and relevant. This showed me how media can either shut down conversation or open doors for healing, depending on how it's done. More of my challenges included finding sources that didn't oversimplify the issues. Many articles talked about justice but ignored the emotional and cultural weight behind silence. This showed me not everything is clearly laid out, so I had to read between the lines, especially when analyzing what the media wasn't saying. But overcoming these challenges helped me grow, and now I feel more confident tackling tough, layered topics and dissecting arguments. Here is the back of my poster. The academic sources for this presentation were crucial. For example, my sources of Fontes 2007 and Castaneda 2021 explain how familismo and vergüenza shame pressure victims to stay silent, especially when abuse involves family members. Survivors feel shame and they feel impure due to this cultural value. And another way of viewing it is quote unquote sin vergüenza, meaning you have no shame in saying absurd things, silencing more survivors. Quote unquote absurd things such as sexual abuse is often concealed in Hispanic and Latino communities. Flores Ortiz gave insight into how these dynamics can become normalized in some family structures. These sources help me understand that abuse in Latino families is often hidden not because of ignorance, but because of the emotional and cultural complexity. They also help me critique the media. In the blog post, Chicago Children Advocacy Center, survivors were highlighted, but mostly as inspirational figures. Less focus was given to the cultural barriers that it overcame, although it did mention them. Meanwhile, the Press Telegram article focused solely on a criminal conviction, which assumes justice is achieved through the courts alone. In the end, this project wasn't just about analyzing news articles, it was about amplifying voices that are often ignored. By using the Tillman model and rhetorical analysis, I uncovered how media can either reinforce or silence or spark change, and how we can challenge narratives that don't tell the full story. More importantly, I learned how to stand in that gap as a writer, future nurse, and advocate, and help break the silence with compassion, courage, and truth. Thank you so much for listening.